Hey there, everybody. It is Deb from Deb's Corner, Canada. Just wanted to go over today the psychopath and psychopathy. Today I'm going to go into the factor 1, which is kind of the worst, the upper echelon, I guess, of the psychopathy traits. And if you could just please I'm going to put my YouTube here and my Facebook as well. I just wanted to kind of introduce everybody to those channels as well. If you could like and follow if you enjoy the content, I would sincerely appreciate it. And we're going to move forward here. So we will now kind of dive all the way down to the bottom of that rabbit hole that we were just kind of peering into, right? So we're going to dive in and we're going to open that Pandora's box of what's called the dark triad. And I know I've mentioned dark triad and I haven't gone into it just because I've been kind of waiting to do this, the psychopathy portion of it, to add that in. All right, so a quick disclaimer to anybody out there, any and all content that you see here on Deb's Corner Canada, like any of my channels, Facebook and all of that, right? It should not be used to accuse any individual of any kind of disorder, okay? And it shouldn't really be a substitute for professional services. However, you know, I find this stuff cannot help. It cannot not help. It cannot not help. But, you know, if you can avail yourself of professional services, you know, that's a really good route to go as well. And should be taken, you know, above what I'm doing here. This is really more like research and experience and stuff, okay? So psychopathy. It's also referred to as antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD. And these ones I like to really refer to as the soulless apex predators that live among us. That's kind of what they are. If you think about, you know, T-Rex, there are T-Rex, right? And so really what's going to happen here is, you know, and it's really contrary to the news and those TV programs, right? Like we're always seeing those programs, but psychopaths actually, honestly, usually live seemingly normal lives all around us. They live normal lives. They never really do much of anything. And honestly, not many of them even realize that they have an issue. They don't even realize that there's really even a problem their whole lives. They can go their whole lives, not even know. I know. Weird, eh? Okay, so let's start with that dark triad. So we were explaining that triangle there. So if we picture that we put kind of on one side narcissism and on the other side psychopathy, and then on the bottom we're going to put in Machiavellianism. And if you have all three of these traits, you are considered to be in the dark triad. Not a good place to be. All right, so and if you're in that dark triad, you most likely would be put into a category, and you've got yourself a psychopath or somebody with psychopathy. So this little trio that we just talked about there of really extreme negative personality traits, it packs quite the proverbial kind of soul gut punch to us, right? And these folks have zero empathy. So we talked earlier of sociopaths, and they can actually just choose. They can just choose not to care. A psychopath has no choice. It's not there, and they just don't have it, and there's nothing there, and it's a big zip-de-doo. And so usually, you know, they will exhibit, though, just like the sociopaths, they will exhibit ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, at a very young age, and it'll be very severe, like we said before. But with these guys, way worse, right? Just turn the volume up. So they'll be, you know, with no conscience or set morality at all, like they just don't have it. The ones who do actually catch on that they do kind of have this pathology are probably most likely in this tier here, this tier 1, the worst one. They're typically going to be really proud. They're going to see it as their advantage over other human beings. They're going to see it as their right, and they're going to see it as a way that they can kind of have that kind of one-upmanship, and that kind of, you know, they can have one up on somebody, right? Duper's delight too, right? All right, so their real thoughts towards others, their real thoughts are actually very rude and very condescending. So if you ever heard what was going on in their brain, you'd be appalled, probably appalled. Like the rest of us, oh, what a nice little dog on the side of the road. I wonder what breed. No, they're thinking, why is, you know, they're thinking something horrible. They're thinking something nasty all the time, consistently. All right, so, and unfortunately, you know, it's usually nasty towards whoever they're with, but it can go in a whole bunch of different routes. All right, so they're going to see it really as a special advantage. It's a really special advantage to them, right? So their real thoughts towards others being so condescending, they're so nasty, right? And they, but however, even though they're kind of nasty in here, they actually can still spend some time socializing. They can actually blend in for a little bit, not long, but they can blend in. They just can't sustain it. So they can be there for like you know, a couple hours. But if you're with them for, say, a week, they can't sustain that. That would be way over what they're willing to do. That you're above their pay grade. They're not willing to do that. As sad as that is. Okay, so they tend to be pervasively arrogant. Nose in the air, they have a nice car, they have a big house, they make a lot of money, they're a model, they're, I don't know, president of the world, okay, whatever it may be, right? So they'll tend to be very arrogant and braggy about whatever it is. Even if it's not that great, they're still going to do it, right? And they're going to excel at putting others at ease, right? And that's what that extreme fake charm. If you see fake charm, you need to have your little antenna come up really, really quick on the fake charm, okay? And it could just be in that moment that person's in a good mood and they're talkative and whatever, but just keep an eye on stuff like that. So control and power should actually be their middle names. These should be the middle names of these guys here. And yet, when a target, they're kind of enforcing that dominance on. So if they're at a target and they're being nasty and they're being cruel, and that target's kind of like, you got to stop, I don't feel well, please, you know, they're pleading with them and they're crying and they're upset. And these type 2, these factor 2s are gonna get a nice thrill out of that, because they have upset you, they have made you cry, and they've, you know, made you miserable. So, but pleading the case to one of these you know, factor 1s is going to have about as much effect as nailing Jello to the wall. There's going to be nothing that's going to happen. And really what it's going to do for them actually is going to give them that extra octane. It's going to give them that extra fuel, that extra funk, that extra wonderfulness. They're going to love it. Love it means to them they're in control, right? They're going to get more fuel. So if somebody's pleading with them, they're causing harm, these are the people that they love it, right? And then what they're going to do is they're going to double down. They're going to make it worse. So if you're pleading, you look even worse to them, you look even more pathetic and vulnerable to them, and you look more like a victim, and they're going to treat you like one, because that's how they see everybody, but in the moment with that person, right? So it's all down. It's really, they're going to double down on that control. They're going to double down on that mean-spiritedness, nastiness. That's what they're going to do. All right. So we said before, like, that sociopath can choose. They can choose, you know, if they might have little small moments where they just choose not to care, but they can once in a while care. These guys, there's no choices to be made. It's not there. It's not there to use or utilize at all. It's just, it's missing. It's completely missing. All right. And so a psychopath simply has like 0 emotions, none, 0. So 0 emotions and fears, or even empathy, like they have 0 empathy, right? So sir, for example, say a spouse comes home from, say, brain surgery or some really serious surgery, right? And they just had really serious surgery. So only, you know, what a psychopath of this ilk would do is kind of bring you back home, and then they would say, oh, here's your water, here's your drink, good luck to you. And they'd be off dating other people, they'd be, you know, off at their job, whatever, and they're really going to just kind of still expect, even though that person's had a horrific, you know, they're trying to recover from something, they're going to expect that this partner still has perfection, this partner still does what they're supposed to be doing, and now they've inconvenienced them, though, so they have to do even more. And so these are the type that will, you know, even, you know, expect you to clean a house or expect you to have sex with them, like hours after you're home or whatever, these kind of people. And they'll have no empathy about this whatsoever. They feel it's their due. No empathy. All right, so these are broken and earthbound souls, I consider them to be, who don't even really entertain the thought of any consequences. Like, consequences aren't a word they understand. They know they're for other people, but they're not for them. So they don't really understand that concept at all. And just, you know, when we think that this one, you know, disorder here is as bad as it's going to get, you know, and really kind of takes the cake, we now are going to discover there are actually 2 main levels. There are 2 splits to this, right? And either no less shocking, I guess, but, you know, factor 1 being worst of the worst, right? And so really for this disorder is typically going to be split. They're going to split it when they're kind of ascertaining if somebody has this, with everything, you know, all of that we've talked about, et cetera, right? But they're also going to put them into a different classification based on these things, right? So you've got factor 1 or primary, which is the one we're going to go over now, and then you've got factor 2 or secondary. So that there's 2 different kind of categories I know. All right, so in factor one here, right, they have superficial charm. Factor one's superficial charm. They'll have many, many, many very, very, very serious lies. And it's usually actually, honestly, for something material. Material gain, some kind of money or something, house, car, or something material. All right, they will also even ensure, you know, there's false proof. So if they're lying, or you think they might get caught up in something, or they're not quite sure if something will work, they're actually going to have false proof. They'll keep, like, because they have so many constant lies that they have to, that, you know, eventually people call them on them, right? They're going to call them on these lies, right? But they're going to keep these lies and these types of lies very, very straight. They're going to, even if they have to write them down somewhere, they're going to keep them straight, okay? And they're going to be doing that because they want to have proof, right? They're going to have receipts, they're going to have witnesses, they're going to have like a whole bunch of made up stuff going on, right? So these are, and they're also really fearless and aggressive people, really, blah. They don't mind getting in your face. They don't mind. So, and will have zero issues seriously escalating their rage states to frightening levels. Frightening, like police being called, frightening levels. All right, all in order to maintain their dominance and their control, and above all, power. Power is what they seek above all else. Factor one, power. Due to criminality in this tier and ongoing problems that they have with authority, their emotional callus is like they're really set in stone. They have an emotional callus that's never going away, no amount of water. So this factor one type, the most dangerous type, it also has no issue legally abusing others. Okay, so if a business breaks up, or a relationship breaks up, or child custody is involved, or whatever, right? They don't care. But what they're going to do is abuse people, right? So say they know you don't have money, they'll keep you in court over and over and over again to break you down. They're very, very prone to legal abuse, financial abuse, verbal abuse, and sexual abuse. Very prone to this. It's very common in a factor one. Very common. All right, so as society's rules and you know, those expectations, they don't mean anything to them. They have no value to them whatsoever. They don't have value. Like they're not a check, they're not attention, they're not anything for them. Like, so they don't hold anything for them. So this type is almost always, I'm going to say always, impervious to the pain that they cause others unless it affects them. So they could harm someone very badly and very seriously, and that person could be in agony, and they'll go and have a drink, they'll go and watch a show, they'll be annoyed, they'll go to sleep, they really won't care. They're not going to care at all unless somebody calls on them that they've done it, and when law comes to the door, that's when they're going to pretend they care. That's when they're going to start making up some stories and trying to prove this and prove that. That's when you're going to see this, okay? And so in this factor one, just continuing on here, they're going to follow through. If they threaten to unalive someone, these ones are going to follow through. Almost a large percentage of the time, they're going to follow through. So you have to be so cautious. It's unbelievable with these people, okay? So, but you know, really with these factor ones, and what's kind of, I guess, I don't know if different's the word, but what's so really different with them is they're going to calculate. So the factor twos are really impulsive, but the factor ones, they're going to calculate their chances of getting caught. That's it. Only their chance of getting caught. They don't care about the deed. The deed itself, no matter how bad it is, will not bother them, but they're going to have that, right? They're going to be, they're just, if they're caught out, it's not going to bother them at all, and they're just really thinking, like, they're always going to calculate, how's this going to affect me? Is something going to happen to me? And then that's what they do, right? So they will appear to a partner as almost too emotionally stable. So this is a good one. Too emotionally stable. So nothing's throwing them, nothing at all. It's almost too emotionally stable, right? So nothing is going to phase them. Like a bomb could go off, you know, a block over, and they're just going to go, oh, like, and go back to their show, and it's not going to really, they're very calm when other people are not. I guess that's something to look for there. So they're going to appear almost too stable to a partner, and they can be bargained with. These people, these factor ones, the worst ones, they actually can be bargained with but not by pleading or anything else. They can only be bargained with something like transactional. So say, you know, a spouse is pleading with them, they will not relent to that spouse unless they get something out of it. So say the spouse says, well, I'll give you intimacy if you blah, 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 then it's transactional, then they might, you know, I guess cooperate, if you can call it that. So moving through, finishing our factor one here, continued. So they're going to stare dominantly at anyone in a predatory state. Don't matter who it is, they're staring. So even if it's a, I don't know, say they're just a regular sized man, they're going to even stare at big bodybuilding men, like just predatory, like ready to rock, ready to fight. They have no fear. Remember, they don't care. So they're going to stare in a predatory way, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a judge, a lawyer, their friend, their spouse, their boss, they do not care. Again, right? And so, you know, these factor ones here, they're much more careful. They're much more careful crafting, maintaining like really, really exorbitant lies, right? Keeping track of them. And they will back them up, right? They're gonna have witnesses, receipts, and these types are really gonna, they will threaten to unalive you. They will threaten it, and most likely, you know, you got to have your flags up because they mean business, these people. Okay, so we've discussed that, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.